Welcome to the Breath of God. This is a channel dedicated to studying the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. And in the last 45 days, we've reached over 45,000 people with the gospel of Jesus. Praise God. Therefore, I've opened an online link for secure giving. I'm specifically looking for 3 partners to give $3,000 each to support the ongoing broadcast here at the Breath of God Ministries. And today, our teaching, 1Kings, which is about the disobedience which results in discontinuance. So disobey and discontinue. This is what God does with a person or with a nation if they persist in willful disobedience. And we're going to take a look at this. So in 1Kings, you have the reign of King Solomon. That's in chapters 1 through 11. And this is truly the golden age of Israel. Prosperity is at its height. They build the temple, and the Shekinah glory of God comes down. Solomon asks for wisdom to govern God's people with humility. He starts out very well. And then we see the disruption in chapters 12 through 22. So Solomon persists in his rebellion, and he keeps going further and further away from God and in direct disobedience to explicit commands for the king in the scriptures. And you can find this in chapter 11, verses 11 through 13. And I would suggest that chapter 11 and verses 11 through 13 are the key verses for the book of 1Kings. And you have God finally saying to Solomon, hey, you persisted in disobeying my commands. Therefore, I will discontinue, I will disrupt this nation and separate it. However, I will not do it in your reign, but in your son's reign. And the king had a responsibility. Actually, there was a list of some very simple commands, and the king was supposed to read those commands and obey them. You find Solomon was involved in massive building projects and expanding the kingdom. And it looks like he neglected the very basic commands which God gave him. Perhaps he stopped reading his Bible and was just engaged in work. And he drifted further and further from the Lord. And this brought not only deterioration to Solomon and his family, but to the nation. And so that you see this in chapter 12, his son Rehoboam takes over, and Rehoboam is incredibly arrogant, and he speaks harshly to the people, and the nation splits in two, with 2 tribes in the south and 10 in the north. And the narrative continues showing what happens in these 2 separate kingdoms, north and south. You also have the ministry of Elijah during 1Kings. And this is actually one of the highlights in the book. Elijah is a man of God who's full of integrity, and you see the power of God demonstrated in the ministry of Elijah. The also amazing thing you see during this time with Elijah's ministry is you see the emergence of prophetic families and prophetic children. And you see the phrase, the sons of God appear. And these are the prophets who are powerful in speech and action under the ministry of Elijah. So there's some amazing narratives here in the second half of this book. So that's 1 Kings. So the message is disobedience results in discontinuance. So God is not mocked. A man will ultimately reap what he sows and continues to sow. That is the message. So if a man sows to a sinful nature, from that nature he will reap. If he sows to the Spirit and life, he will reap life. You also see what happens in the midst of moral decay in the nation. Evil sows, and they also reap a reformer in the person of Elijah. So even in the midst of much evil and corruption that was going on in the government, God raised up a reformer in the person of Elijah to turn back the nation. So that is 1 Kings. Thank you for listening today at the Breath of God. And remember, His breath is our calling.